Welcome to explaining Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Now you might be thinking, whoa, this game has been out for more than a decade. What do you mean explaining the lore of FNAF 1? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Everyone's theories nowadays are built on other theories that have never actually had a solid foundation to begin with. That's why I'm here doing these videos. I'm literally the wrecking ball here to destroy the FNAF community and rebuild it. I'm the hero that nobody asked for. You're welcome. So I'm going game by game, starting with FNAF 1, where I'm going through the facts, the FAZ facts of each game. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to do is I want to start with characters. All right, you have your typical four: Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, and Foxy. Now these characters are pretty fantastic, but what I want to do is I want to actually draw your attention to some specific things about these characters. Number one, we're going to start with Freddy. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty because nobody's talking about this. And it's the fact that Freddy has a handprint over his right eye. So literally in the character encyclopedia, and I know there's a lot of controversy about this, but one thing that we can all agree on is the fact that this book has a lot of interesting stuff. So if you can see there, look at that. It's right there. It's literally over his eye. And the best part is about this, there's a quote here that says, "Where did that come from?" This is literally Scott himself being like, hey, that's a pretty big detail that no one's talking about. Maybe you should give it a second look. This book came out in 2021. This book came out in 2023. They both say the same thing. That should tell you something. Bonnie is the most active animatronic during the night. Now it's very interesting because he's so active to the point where it appears that he like jumps from one location to another, which is very odd, right? Very odd. Turns out in both books, it is, and I quote, rumored that Bonnie can teleport. Sorry, there's a lot of book action happening here. He moves much faster than Freddy or Chica, leading to rumors that he can teleport. Character Encyclopedia. But watch out, as he may teleport instantaneously around the pizzeria later on. So I don't know if they're trying to poke fun at this, but that's two sources where they say Bonnie can teleport, and in-game I can confirm, yes, he has the tendency to teleport. Don't know what that means, but that's that. Chica. There is a duplicate cupcake in the office. She has one on stage with her at all times until she leaves stage, then it disappears, and then there's one in the office. Now, a lot of people have been saying that it's the same cupcake and they're using it to spy on the night guard. No, that's simply not true because she has the cupcake on the show stage, and at the same time, there's a cupcake in the office. They're duplicates. It even says in the Ultimate Guide that they are duplicates, not the same cupcake. Get fact. All right, so next we're going to move on to Foxy. Foxy the Pirate. We love him. Been a fan favorite for a very long time. He is also incredibly damaged and out of order. Well, what we know is that he runs off stage. That's one of his traits. He also doesn't like being looked at, and if you look at him too often, he actually will still move and attack you. So another thing that was mentioned in the guides and in the character encyclopedia is drawing the attention to the fact that Foxy is out of order. And I'm pretty sure they even ask, well, why is he out of order? Also, why is he so damaged? I'm pretty sure that's also in the books. Why is Foxy so damaged and why is he out of order? Maybe we should look into that a little bit more. So now we move on to the other characters that we know in this game, which is Mike Schmidt, who we play as in FNAF 1. When we are playing as a security guard in FNAF 1, it is November of 1993. Now, the reason why it's 1993 is because some smart people did some math and figured out that, hey, it has to be 1993. And guess what? It is now 1993. That is canon. That is a FAZ fact. Now, the thing with Mike is we don't actually know that much about him. We don't know why he took the job, why he chose to stay there, and we also don't know why he keeps hallucinating the fact that there's a golden version of Freddy and it saying it's me everywhere. And also, it is very weird that he would accept a job as a night guard in November when the pizzeria is scheduled to close at the end of the year. That's only 2 months of work. Maybe he was very pressed for money, but it just seems very odd that he would take a job that was about to end in 2 months anyway. Now, we actually do know another character in here, right? And that is the one, the only Golden Freddy. So Golden Freddy is really unique. So if you don't know who Golden Freddy is, it is highly theorized that it is a spirit called Cassidy. Again, this has never been really confirmed been alluded to. I know some people are saying that there was 2 spirits in Golden Freddy at one point. It's a mess. This is why we're cleaning it up. So we're only looking at FNAF 1. So we know that there is a Golden Freddy animatronic. That is a hallucination that kind of phases in and out of reality whenever it wants. And it is usually accompanied by the saying, "It's me." And also, it's really weird that whenever Golden Freddy is around, the player, or Mike Schmidt, starts hallucinating Freddy, Bonnie, just kind of like, you know, the flash images and stuff like that. There is none for Chica. And also, when Foxy leaves Pirate's Cove, sometimes the sign says, "It's me," instead of "out of order." So it kind of gives the assumption that Golden Freddy is very well connected with the other 4 animatronics. Now, again, this is kind of flawed. It's not a FAZ fact, but it is something to think about, just because it's a really weird detail. The other character that we know about is the CEO of FNAF 1. We have newspaper clippings, which we will dive into here. On the very last one, there's a quote from the CEO. "After a long struggle to stay in business, after the tragedy that took place there many years ago, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has announced that it will close by year's end. Despite a year-long search for a buyer, companies seem unwilling to be associated with the company." And the CEO of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza says these characters will live on, period. In the hearts of kids, these characters will live on. That is very sus. So that tells me the CEO of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, Fazbear Entertainment itself, knew these characters were haunted. That line where he says, "These characters will live on," and then he stumbles and says, "In the hearts of kids, these characters will live on." The CEO knows more than they're letting on. Okay, so now that we're already at the newspaper clippings, let's actually get into this, because these are the hard facts. These are the actual FAZ facts of FNAF 1. All right, these newspaper clippings literally tell you what is happening. These are the original lore pieces that tell you the story. Kids vanish at local pizzeria, bodies not found. 2 local children were reportedly lured into a back room during the late hours of operation at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Important to note, they're lured into the back room during the late hours of operation. There's some lore significance there, because we do know from the week before, we also know from Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, that typically in the late hours, they tend to try to get people out as fast as possible. But also, if it is late hours, there could be a night guard, right, that is present to switch off with the day guard, which we do know that those 2 were positions based on the week before novel. On the night of June 26th, while video surveillance identified the man responsible and led to the capture the following morning, the children themselves were never found and are presumed dead. Police think that the suspect dressed as a company mascot to earn the children's trust. We have another newspaper clipping. Missing children. 5 children now reported missing, suspect convicted. So 5 children are now linked to the incident at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where a man dressed as a cartoon mascot lured them into a back room. While the suspect has been charged, the bodies themselves were never found. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has been fighting an uphill battle ever since to convince families to return to the pizzeria. It's a tragedy. Alright, now we have another local newspaper, which is very important to the lore as well. Local pizzeria threatened with shutdown over sanitation. Local pizzeria Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has been threatened again with shutdown by health department over reports of foul odor coming from the much-loved animal mascots. Police were contacted when parents reportedly noticed what appeared to be blood and mucus around the eyes and mouths of the mascots. One parent likened them to reanimated carcasses. So that's kind of when we understand that the children's bodies, the reason why they weren't found is because they were put in the animatronic suits. All right, it's pretty crazy. Then we have another piece of local news. Local pizzeria said it closed by year's end. After a long struggle to stay open in business after the tragedy that took place there many years ago. So again, important to note, this was many years ago. So the missing children's incident, where 5 of them went missing, happened many years ago. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has announced that it will close by year's end. Despite a year-long search for a buyer, companies seem unwilling to be associated with the company, and that's where we got the quote from the CEO saying that these characters will live on. In the hearts of kids, these characters will live on. That is the lore that we actually get. Those are the actual FAZ facts of the events that happened at this Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It's also important to note that in one of Phone Guy's voice calls, he does say that that location, right, with those animatronics, have never gotten a bath in 20 years. So let's talk about the bite of 87. This was mentioned by Phone Guy in one of his calls, saying that the animatronics used to walk around during the day too, where they would like interact with kids and just kind of have fun. But then there was the bite of 87. Now the thing is when we're playing this game, it's in 1993. The bite of 87 happened 6 years ago, based on this game. So that brings us back to who did the bite of 87. There's a lot of theories out there saying that it was Foxy, that it was Freddy, that it was Golden Freddy, it was Toy Freddy, it was Chica, it was Mangle. Like, literally, there's a case to be made for every single animatronic. And I'm here to tell you, we do not know who did the bite of 87. Hello, it's the next day. Well, the next morning. While I was recording yesterday, I was talking about the bite of 87 and stuff like that. In the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm pretty sure we actually know who did the bite of 87. Apparently, it was hinted at significantly that it was Withered Foxy in the Week Before novel. So basically, on page 18 of the Week Before, Ralph is in the restroom and he's trying to fix a burnt out light bulb, because throughout this book, you're doing like maintenance tasks and stuff for, you know, just for funsies. But he gets cornered by Foxy, and he specifically says this. All right, page 18. Everything about this animatronic screams not for kids, which is probably why his attraction has been marked out of order for the reopening. Though as far as you know, he's never bitten any kids, and kids is in italics. Like, it's emphasizing the word kids. So that, from that line alone, that's what everyone's saying, like, oh, hold on. He hasn't bitten any kids, but it does hint that he did bite an adult, and the adult was most likely a FAZ staff member or, you know, a parent or something. Anyway, you learn something new every day. Anyway, I'm going to get back to editing now. Now, there are theories, obviously. There's many theories. People saying that when FNAF 1 came around that, hey, it was probably Foxy because he's out of order. Or, hey, it might have been Freddy because there's literally a rule page, and one of the rules, out of all the funny ones, say, do not touch Freddy.
Was that the bite of 87?
No. No, it wasn't, Markiplier. It was not. It never was. And it never will be. But what we do know is that the victim, whoever it was, lost their frontal lobe and survived. Alright, so another thing to point out is that the layout of FNAF 1 is very inconsistent. You can see on the cameras what we actually see in FNAF 1. There's a very specific layout. However, in the Week Before, the way the layout's described is entirely different. It's also important to note that in the Silver Eyes novels, they also describe the pizzeria, and these are based on the FNAF 1 pizzeria. And they describe it in a way that, again, isn't technically the same layout, but it is pretty close. And the big Orville elephant in the room is the fact that the FNAF movie is also based on the FNAF 1 location, and yet again, not the same layout, not even in the slightest. So this leads to a lot of controversy saying like, oh, well, how do we even know that this book takes place in the same pizzeria? It's because it's said by Scott himself and in the book that this is the exact same location. However, this is kind of leapfrogging a bit, but when we cover the Help Wanted FAZ Facts, and we talk about how FNAF 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5, and maybe 6 is all games within the game and aren't actual factual places, then a lot makes sense that FNAF 1 and its layout was made as a game that was based on the actual Freddy Fazbear's Pizza at the time, and the actual Freddy Fazbear's Pizza that we talk about and we hear about is this layout. But in the FNAF 1 game, it's a different layout because it's a game that was made by a developer by Fazbear Entertainment within the game. So now let's get into the nitty gritty. Who is Golden Freddy? Why do they keep saying it's me? And why is Mike Schmidt still there? Well, originally when I was playing FNAF for the very first time, right, my initial reaction was, oh, well, if you have a character that's saying it's me, and we don't know who that is, it has to be some character that we learn of in the game. And the only other characters that we know of our phone guy, right, and the CEO, right? Those are the only two that we really understand. Then again, Mike Schmidt could also have, you know, people in his life that we don't know. So we have some theories. My first theory was that Golden Freddy was actually phone guy. Because if you think about it, so when Golden Freddy says, it's me, it's like, oh, well, that makes sense to be phone guy because that's the only other person we really talk to in the game. Thing is that we know from future installments that was simply not the case, that we actually don't know what happened to Phone Guy. Now there are some people saying that, oh well, Phone Guy actually died to Golden Freddy, That's also not the case, because in the week before, it actually says that he was attacked simultaneously by all the animatronics: Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, and Foxy. In fact, in the week before, he also gets haunted by Golden Freddy, with multiple signs saying "it's me." Just another great thing to think about. Another theory that was brought up was Mike Schmidt was the one that did commit the murders, and the reason why Golden Freddy keeps saying "it's me" is because Mike used the Golden Freddy suit, which we later realized was Fredbear, and that's the suit he used to murder the children. And it keeps saying "it's me" because it's his own conscience that is telling him that "it's me, I'm the one that did these horrible things," which would also make sense on why, whenever that does happen, he hallucinates Freddy's face and Bonnie's face, because Freddy's face is very gruesome and there's eyeballs coming out the front of the mask, and Bonnie's face just looks very dead and soulless inside. He could very well be remembering the faces of the kids he wrongfully, very dark stuff. But again, at the time with FNAF 1, that made a lot of sense. Now, the last thing that it could be is Mike Schmidt could have had some kind of connection to these missing children's incidents. It would also make sense on why he accepted the job position, knowing that the place was going to close at year end. This was not a stable job, it wasn't going to pay his bills for the long term, so why would you accept it? Maybe he's trying to figure out what really happened. Or maybe he was called there for some reason. Maybe the person that's saying "it's me" is one of his relatives. Now, the last thing I want to touch on here is, at the very end of the game with Mike Schmidt, you actually get fired. And the reason why you get fired is because of odor and tampering with the animatronics. But it's really weird that you were fired due to tampering with animatronics. That's a FAZ fact. Why was he tampering with the animatronics? What was he looking for? What was he trying to do? So those are a bunch of questions that we're still trying to ask. These were the FAZ facts of FNAF 1. I hope I did a good job explaining the lore of FNAF 1 and the actual facts that we can use as evidence for theories, and I hope I disproved some theories. Now, could I be wrong? Could these FAZ facts be simply not facts at all and just incorrect? No. Well, I hope this helped you, and remember, that was just a theory. Nope. And just remember that those were just facts. FAZ facts. Now go get fact.